Ram students, I welcome all of you once again to our session of heredity and evolution. So far, we already learned about what is exactly heredity. So, we already know that there are many of our external features and the habits we get from our parents. So, the transmission of characters from one generation to the another generation is called as heredity. So, guys, one more thing we learned in the last lecture, that is the central dogma of the life. We all know that our body requires the protein in the daily basis, but we can't get all type of the protein through the diet. So body has to take care and body has to synthesize the protein. So the protein synthesis message is resided inside the nucleus of the cell. Inside the nucleus, the DNA molecule is present. So here in this case, in the central dogma of the life, from DNA messenger RNA synthesis takes place. So this process we call it as transcription. Once the mRNA synthesis took place, this mRNA will come out from the nucleus and it will go to the ribosomal RNA, where the message of the mRNA will be decoded into the protein. So mRNA to protein, we call it as translation. So one more thing we already learned here about that, on mRNA there is a triplet of nucleotide which are present. On mRNA, the triplet of nucleotide which are present, we call it as codon, and the same triplet of nucleotide which are present on the tRNA, we call it as anticodon. One more thing we already learned here, that is about the mutation. What is exactly mutation? Mutation is the sudden change in the structure of the DNA. So when DNA structure gets completely changed, automatically the external feature of an organism also changes. So here we already spoke about the scientist Hugo de Vries. He told us that mutation is one of the factor which is responsible for process of the evolution. So what is exactly evolution? Evolution is the slow gradual changes which are taking place inside the living organism's body. And here we already know about there are total 6 evidences of evolution. What are those 6 types of the evolution? Let's see here. The first one in the morphological evidences, the second one is the anatomical evidences, third one is a vestigial organ, the fourth one paleontological evidences, the fifth one connecting link, and the last one is the embryological evidences. These all evidences we already learned in detail in the last lecture. This is just a quick revision for you. So here again I am representing the morphological evidences for your quick recap here. You can see diagram which is displayed here. There are animals and the plants which are displayed here. They show similar external features. So this similar feature tells us about these animals have the same ancestor, like common ancestor. Again you can see in the next diagram we had shown here the anatomical evidence. Here in the anatomical evidence, if you look carefully, the skeleton of the different organisms are almost looking similar, but yeah, their functions are different. Although functions are different, the structure is almost similar. So even this indicates that these animals have got the similar common ancestor. One more thing here we already spoke about the vestigial organ. What are the vestigial organ? Let me revise once again. Vestigial organs are those organs which are useful in one organism and which are useless in other organism. Like you can see here, appendix is one of the vestigial organ in we human being, but the same appendix is useful in the other animal for the digestion of the cellulose. Even here you can see ear muscles, the wisdom tooth, and the tailbone. These are some of the common vestigial organ which are present in us. One more thing guys we already learned here, that is the paleontological evidences. Paleontological evidences shows us about the remains of the fossils in the earth crust. So the layer of the different fossils in the earth crust tells us about the how exactly different type of the animal evolved from particular animal. And this fossil like one of the technique we learned in the paleontological evidences, that is the carbon dating. By using the carbon dating technique, we can identify exact death time of an individual. And this carbon dating technique was discovered by the name of the scientist Willard Libby. And here one of the most important is the connecting link. What is exactly connecting link? See, connecting link means particular connection between the two things, and this connecting link is the organism which will share the common feature in the two different animals. Okay, so I have shown here the three connecting link. The first one, duck-billed platypus, second is the lungfish, and the next one is the peripatus. So this is one of the important question which might come for your board exam, and already this question had been asked in last year board exam also and this year also, and that's why I have highlighted this particular concept here in front of you. If you wish, you can note down in your notebook also. See guys, here peripatus is the connecting link between Annelida and Arthropoda. Peripatus is the connecting link between the Annelida and the Arthropoda. Lungfish is the connecting link between the fishes and the amphibian. Duck-bill platypus is the connecting link between the reptiles and the mammals. So I hope so you must be knowing now connecting link. It may come for objective questions like filling the blanks, answer in one sentence, match the following, and etc etc. So just read this particular thing carefully from this topic. And in this process of the evolution technique, there was the main contribution of the scientist whose name was Charles Darwin. The theory of evolution was first proposed by the English scientist the Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin told us that about the natural selection, where he let us know about the those organisms who can fight for their existence. Darwin told us about the survival of the fittest, like the organism who can try to change themselves according to the changes in the environment only survive, and the organism who won't change themselves according to the changes in the environment, they will eventually perish. Here we had seen that. Let's learn about the Darwin's theory of natural selection in detail. This particular paragraph I have took from the textbook. I am reading this particular paragraph for you. Let's see. Charles Darwin had collected innumerable of the plants and the animals, and depending upon the observation of those specimens, he published the theory of natural selection, which preaches the survival of the fittest. For this purpose, Darwin had published a book titled Origin of the Species. While explaining the concept, Darwin says that all the organisms reproduce prolifically. All the organisms compete with each other in the life-threatening manner. In this competition, only those organisms sustain which show the modification essential for winning the competition. However, beside this, natural selection also plays important role because nature selects only those organisms which are fit to live and the rest perish. Sustaining and the selected organism can perform reproduction and thereby give rise to the new species and their own specific character. Darwin's theory of natural selection was widely accepted for long duration. But again, Darwin had certain objections over this theory. Like, what are the objections of the Darwin's theory? Let's see here. Natural selection is not only the factor responsible for evolution. Like we had just learned about the mutation theory. Hugo de Vries just told us that mutation is one of the factor for evolution. So we can't just say that natural selection is responsible for evolution process. After that, Darwin did not mention any explanation about useful and the useless modification which are occurring in an organism. Next one, there is no explanation about the slow changes or abrupt changes which are occurring in the living organism. So the Darwin, like the Darwin who couldn't give explanation about the useless and the useful changes in the organism, that was given by the name of the scientist whose name was Jean Baptiste Lamarck. Jean Baptiste Lamarck told us the principle of use and disuse of the organ. He proposed that the activities of the organism are responsible for their evolution process. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Here in the diagram, you can see that in the beginning, the giraffe had got short neck. So, for fetching the grass, they used to dependent upon the short trees. Eventually, the trees started growing taller and taller, and with the help of the short neck, giraffe couldn't reach to the tall trees. For to fetch the food, slowly, giraffe stretched their neck for grabbing the food material. So here in this process, you can see that just to obtain the food material, giraffe stretched their neck, and this character of stretching the neck, it got transferred to the next generation, and this is how the giraffe has got the long neck in the process of evolution. One more thing that he told us about their theory. This French naturalist proposed that each animal or plant undergo some changes in its lifespan, and those changes are transferred to the next generation, and such changes occur in the subsequent generation too. One of the most important definition from the Lamarckism, it might come for objective, so please note down this also particular thing. The living organism can transfer the characters which it has acquired to the next generation. This is called as ancestry of acquired characters. So basically, the moral of the story of the Lamarckism, the development of the long neck in the giraffe is an example of the Lamarck's theory of the evolution. But let me tell you, even after particular time period, even the Lamarck's theory of evolution was got abandoned, because the reason is that, let's say for example, if we gain the muscle by doing so much exercise, that doesn't give us guarantee that these grown muscles will be inherited to the next generation. So eventually after some time, the Lamarck's theory was not accepted, but yeah, certain things it got accepted from the Lamarck theory. The next concept which we are going to learn, that is speciation. Before learning speciation, let me remind you once again what is exactly species. So species is the group of similar organism, like a group of cats, group of dogs, group of like human beings. So these are the particular group of the organism who are sharing similar genetic makeup and the phenotypic makeup. They are called as a species. So species is the group of organism that can produce fertile individual through the natural reproduction. Each species grows in specific geographical conditions. Their food, habitat, reproductive ability, and period is different. Formation of the new species of the plants and the animal is the effect of the evolution process. Now, as we spoke about many things about the evolution, so now let's learn about the interesting fact of the human evolution. How humans developed slowly. When we speak about the evolution process, many of the students misunderstood that we considered that monkeys are our ancestor. But let me tell you, monkeys are not our ancestor. Monkey are the type of the ape category. So rather we will modify this statement that monkey and human being got the same ancestor. Okay, so now what are the stages of the human being evolution? We will learn about them in detail one by one. So here, first of all, let me give you a slight introduction how exactly the development process took place over here. Around 4 years ago, ape-like animal reaches the South and Northeast Asia and finally evolved into gibbon and orangutan. After some time, like 2.5 years, like 2.5 crore years ago, these remaining ape-like animal stayed in the Africa, and from them gorilla and chimpanzees are evolved. So basically remember this example, like even it might be important for your examination. So remember two things what you have to learn from here, uh, where where exactly it evolved and when it evolved. So here you have to remember, and particularly where it is, what is the location of the evolution of that organism. Again I'll repeat, gibbon and orangutan, they evolved around they evolved around 4 crore years ago. Where they evolved? In the south and northeast Africa, Asia. On other hand, gorilla and chimpanzee, they evolved in the Africa around 2.5 crore years ago. So please do remember that. Now let's see the next thing. After the ape category in the human evolution process, the first one of our ancestor is the Dryopithecus. Now you can see the image of the Dryopithecus in front of you. These Dryopithecus are the ape-like animals, and they have got the forelimb shorter than the hind limb. They started to use their hands for eating food and the other activities, and again they are also called as the distant ancestor of the man. The next thing which we are going to learn after that, the Ramapithecus. Ramapithecus evolved from the Dryopithecus. The development of the Ramapithecus took place around 1 crore year ago in the East Africa. And remember one more thing, Ramapithecus was the first record of human-like animal. Most important MCQ, filling the blanks, odd man out. Please remember this. So they might ask you, who was the first human-like animal? So who is the first human-like animal? Ramapithecus is the first human-like animal. After that, from the Ramapithecus, the development of the Australopithecus takes place. The Australopithecus is also called as ape man. And most importantly, the Australopithecus evolved about 40 lakh years ago in the South Africa. Most importantly to remember here, Australopithecus is the connecting link between ape and man. Australopithecus is connecting link between ape and man. From Australopithecus, Homo erectus developed. Homo erectus developed around 20 lakhs years ago, who is also called as the Homo habilis. And after that, the development of the Java man took place. So Java man and the Homo habilis, these two species comes under the genus called as the Homo erectus. So they had got slightly straight posture, and they were good in using the handy tools and using the walking posture and all that thing. From Homo erectus, there was the development of the Neanderthal man. Neanderthal man evolved from Homo erectus around 1 lakh years ago. And again, most important over here, Neanderthal man was the first wise man. Again, I'll repeat once again. Neanderthal man was first wise man. He started using the tools, and he again has got the developed speech, and he had low forehead, not like the other monkeys. Then Cro-Magnon man developed from the Neanderthal man. Cro-Magnon man was evolved around 50,000 years ago, and the scientific name of the Cro-Magnon man was Homo sapien. Homo sapien is the scientific name of the Cro-Magnon man, and this Cro-Magnon man is a direct ancestor of we modern human being. So here you can see that, guys, here we modern human being are evolved after the development of the Cro-Magnon man. And after Cro-Magnon man, whatever development took place in the stages of the human being, it was very rapid. And here you can see that the scientific name of the modern man was Homo sapien sapien. We are Homo sapien sapien. Sapien word will repeat twice for us. And for Cro-Magnon, sapien word will repeat only once. So we are Homo sapien sapien. So meanwhile, after some time, the brain got developed. So as the human evolution stages were there, eventually the brain size also developed and the intelligence level also got developed slowly. Then after that, modern man started practicing the agriculture. Then he started rearing the cattle herds. Then he established cities and the culture. Even he discovered the art of writing and all that thing. Even right now in today's generation, we modern human being made a lot of changes in our lifestyle by using the science and the technology. Whatever things right now we need, that is everything is available on our fingertips just by using the technology. So these are the changes which are occurring in our body as well as in our intelligence. So guys, so far we spoke about these are the stages of the human being development. Purposefully I have written here a shortcut because even I am not able to recall all the stages of the human evolution. So that's why I have made shortcut for you so that we can recall very easily for exam. Because in exam they ask you who evolved from who, Neanderthal man evolved from whom, like even they may ask you Australopithecus evolved from whom. So these are the questions which are little tricky, and that's why I have made this shortcut for you. So the words which are written in the red letter, they are the shortcut. Like I'll read the shortcut for you so that you can understand here. Dr. Ram and Hanuman joined neonatal Crowman Modern Hospital. I'll repeat once again. Dr. Ram and Hanuman joined neonatal Crowman Modern Hospital. Now, what is the full form over here? Let's see. Here, the doctor stands for Dryopithecus. Ram stands for Ramapithecus. N stands for Australopithecus. Hanuman stands for Homo habilis. Join stands for Java man. Neonatal stands for Neanderthal man. Crowman stands for Cro-Magnon man. Modern hospital stands for modern man. I'll repeat once again all the names for you so that you can remember the stages of the human evolution. The first one, Dryopithecus, Ramapithecus, Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Java man, Neanderthal man, Cro-Magnon man, and the modern man. Dryopithecus was the first ape-like animal. Ramapithecus was the first human-like animal. Australopithecus is the connecting link between ape and the man. Homo habilis is the handyman who started using his hands for different kind of the tools and etc. Neanderthal man was the first wise man. Cro-Magnon man is also called as a Homo sapien, and we modern man are also called as Homo sapien sapien. So guys, here we completed our topic heredity and evolution. I hope so. Till now, whatever concept we learned till now, like central dogma of the life, translation, transcription, translocation, mutation, evolution process, evidences of evolution, Darwin's theory of evolution, Lamarckism, and just now we saw the human evolution process. So here we will stop. Thank you.